Okay, so let's head on over to our manual, shall we? And just take a look and see what we have listed for pyramid pose. And this will be part of our anatomy clinic that we'll be offering. So keep an eye open for that. There will be some
Okay,
information.
so let's head on.
There will be some information in the comments about that with links and such once it's all done. But right now we're going to be going over pyramid pose. So if you have the manual, if you're a student of Ed Yoga School, head over to page 63. If you're not, I'm going to open this up as a screen share for you so that you don't miss a thing. So here we are. As we consider pyramid pose in asana, where to start off, how to go about it, how to go about getting into it, and what is the anatomy involved with it. So I like to start off in Warrior Two. I like to use language such as invite your front arm forward and straighten your front leg. It's clear, it's concise, it's to the point. It's not terribly flowery or symbolic language that you'll find in my class, although you can add that in as long as you don't get the clear, concise message lost in that flowery language. So just make sure it's not at the expense of. So let's see. So we want to pull the navel into the spine or give some sort of cue about that. So the key thing is reminding our practitioner to engage the core and that we're not dumping our body weight on the front leg. Rather, we're using the core strength to hold our body up. So those are some things to consider and keep in mind, right? And then invite the nose to the chin, tucking that down, and hands to the floor alongside feet. So in my picture, her hands are not on the floor alongside the feet because I think it's really important to offer a modification of how we could progress people into that posture, into that I wouldn't even say final posture, right? Because there's no such thing as a final posture, but how to progress them towards that full 360 movement, right? And so if you jump down to modifications, you'll see that for modifications, we could take a slight bend in the front leg or do not bring the hands to the floor, which is why I chose this picture and not bringing the hands down. So there's a couple of choices to be made here as far as anatomy goes, why we would decide to either bend the knee or we would decide to bring the hands down or not, and what's impacted with the anatomy when we make those choices as teachers to share with our class. Or if you're taking this to enhance your personal practice, knowing what's happening when you do it. So our qualities are our advancements, how we go about bringing this posture forward, right? Moving it towards this yogic edge. So our more seasoned yogis might be looking for these cues in a class, new ways to refine what they're working on, and so on. Cues are more basic building blocks of how to get folks into the posture that you're looking for class wide, and then refinement will be on the quality side. And that might mean something different to you than it does to me based on our language skills. And that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as you have an understanding of what it is you're trying to do, then it all works out. So with our qualities, we might, after we get everybody basically where we want to go and offer the modifications that could be available to them, then let's thread back and forth between the qualities and the modifications and the reasons to do it. So qualities, feel the stretch along the back of the leg. So here we see a nice stretch through the hamstrings, through the gastrocnemius, through the soleus, and that's just so incredibly lovely. If we, however, and even the pelvic floor muscles will get some stretch. If we, however, invite them to just bend the leg, if you can't reach the floor, then the anatomy of this movement has just changed greatly. And so, in this way, I invite you to approach postures such as these as it's not so much about how far can the range of motion go, right? Or how big can we make the asana, or how advanced could it look so we can take a picture for Instagram, right? But instead, how can we honor the anatomy behind the posture that's benefiting the body of the practitioner most? So in that way, we could bend the front leg, but I'd probably first invite them to not bring the hands to the floor. Because if we don't have the flexibility in the hamstrings, for example, then not only are we not really helping that by bending at the knee, but in all probability, we may not have the overall body flexibility to reach the hands with keeping the integrity of the alignment with the spine. So those are just a couple of things you're going to want to keep an eye on and just consider when giving cues. And again, there is no right or wrong. There's no, oh no, keep the arms up or put the hands down or bend the knee or keep the legs straight. It's only that we understand as teachers or practitioners what it is we're doing and why it is we're doing it and why we think the audience before us can benefit from that knowledge. And I think in order to teach an effective class, knowing your anatomy is paramount. So you don't need my anatomy clinic for that, but do get the Yoga Anatomy book, edition 1, and make sure that you study those asana and you start to pick up on that knowledge and the themes of it. So let's continue on, shall we? All right, so arms, no arms, knees, no knees. Let's go to the upper part of the body from the hips on up. Through this, no matter what you do, you're going to have a nice stretch through the pelvic floor, through the hips, through the glutes. So that's going to be beneficial for you. But let's talk about the erector spinae. This is the spine. This is what holds the body upright all day long so that we can walk. We don't like collapse and fall over. So there's much demand on these muscles that run alongside the spine there. Let's see, I have an exhibit. I have a candle here. So there's much demand that run along these muscles, right? And so we want to stretch them out and we want to strengthen them. And it's so important. And yoga does that. It does that through balance. It does that through core engagement. It does that through core engagement when you're trying to balance, because those two work together in tandem, right? But then also to provide a length of stretching and lengthening can go such a long way in the health of the muscle itself, and then also the connective tissue that surrounds it, which is a really big deal. I use the analogy in our filming of this clinic that was promoted on Facebook Live of Laffy Taffy. So if you put it in the freezer and you take it out and you crack it, it will just snap. Whereas if you drop it on the sidewalk and you step in it and it's on your shoe, it's really gummy, really pliable. You can't get it off your shoe. Well, connective tissue works the same way as Laffy Taffy, which is why I so commonly bring it up in yoga teacher training. And that if we jump into a posture without understanding the anatomy behind it, we have a higher probability of getting injured because we may not know which postures come before other postures and which ones is paramount that we're warm in order to do, in order for the benefits to outweigh the risks. I mean, the truth is you can go walking down the sidewalk and risk getting injured, but we do want the benefits to outweigh the risks. So keep that in mind when choosing what asana or what progression of what asana is right for you. So stretching out that erector spinae is so huge. Lovely, lovely to do that. So this is a spinal flexion. So when you're assembling a class, we want to make sure that we're touching all areas of the body with whatever postures that you're choosing. So flexion is bending forward, extension is back, or hyperextension technically is back bend, right? Whereas holding upright, those erector spinae into just a classic extension, a lateral stretch to the side, either way, opening up that side body. There's a movement that our body doesn't get very often. A twist, be warm before you do it, right? And then coming into an inversion, which you may have already picked up in your forward fold. So let's see, flexion, extension, lateral bend, hyperextension, extension, twist, inversion. Yes, you want all of them in every class, but make sure that you're warm before you do any big back bends, right? So we don't wake up out of bed and start doing cobras for upward facing dogs. For back bends, and make sure you're nice and warm before twists. You want twists planted late in your class, back half of your class after your apex pose. We talk about that in a different lesson. And inversions, always keep an eye on blood pressure or anything like that, because those inversions can impact those things. And again, that's more on another lesson, but I try and touch it and thread it in as we go. So I hope that you have found this little workshop on pyramid pose and how it can benefit your physical structure and stretch out the body and so on. Some key benefits include, written below here, improves posture, sense of balance and digestion. We'll get into that as to why those folds and twists do that. It is a yummy stretch up the back of the leg if we didn't take the knee bend, and coordinating the body, balancing mindfully. So I hope that you enjoyed this little bit. Namaste. Keep an eye open for my clinic starting soon.